Ready to hit the pause button on your parenting fails? Ready to feel better about your parenting? Welcome to Parenting Pause, the podcast, where all of you is welcome and where you can listen in on how other parents became the parents they always dreamed of being. I'm Leslie Potter, the founder of the Pure Joy Parenting Way. I'm a mother, a parenting coach, and a fellow traveler on this journey to wake up in our parenting. And I believe together we can make this a better world for ourselves and our kiddos. I am so excited that you're here with me today.
Thank you. I'm really, really honored that you asked me to speak about my experience with you. I have so much to say.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to hear. So maybe you could start us out today telling me a little bit about you and what was going on in your home that kind of brought you to explore this view of parenting, because I like to make sure parents know this is just a view of parenting, and I'd love to hear about, your curiosity around it. You're a single mom and you have a son, right?
Yep, I have one son who is 11 now, and I believe he was maybe 8 when I found you,
I think so.
or
Yeah.
9.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what was happening was I had done all this work on myself, all this spiritual work, all this personal development work, and I felt like I really was in a good place in my life, except I kept getting so angry with my son. And I would find that I was like, especially like in the mornings, getting out to school every morning almost, or like 3 days a week, I would just blast on him. And then I would get in the car and I'd have this huge shame come over me. And I
Mm-hmm.
was seeing a therapist. She was great for me personally, but she didn't really have any strategies. I kept saying, "Don't you have any practical strategies? Like, I need somebody to tell me what to do.
What to do?
Tell me what to do."
To get this kid in
And then
control.
really,
Right?
well, no, I knew it wasn't about getting, I knew that much, that it wasn't about getting this kid in control. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why you resonated with me so much. Because when I read your page, I mean, I just started bawling when I saw read your bio, and I was like, oh my God, it's me. That's me. That's what I need. This is the person. So I think I knew right away, like, it wasn't the method, it was you. Like how you just resonate with somebody. That's how I find my teachers anyway. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was in a spot where I remember you like talking to me on the phone and me being like, well, I don't know if I can invest like that. And you're like, well, people invest in you can choose to, I think you said something like, you can choose to just go on, or you can make a investment in this like everybody else does when they go to the doctor or whatever, and step forward and make a change. And I took a minute to think about it, and I just did it, and I'm so thankful because I'm telling you, Leslie, my entire life, who I am, everything about everything is changed forever. Like, nothing has impacted me more than working with you. And that is the honest truth. I'm not saying that because I'm on a podcast. I'm saying that because
I paid
that
you.
is the truth. And even clients that I coach now, I never leave out that I always tell them about you. I always tell them about the safe seat practice. I'm not like teaching the safe seat practice, but I think it is a really important part of every person's existence. Basically, like, you have to be able to stop when you're having a moment, just like I did. Like, before I got on this call, I was a few minutes late, I got your text, and I was like getting all heated up, like, oh my God, I forgot. And I could have just went in and really beat myself up. And I started, like, just for me, it's like about a split second now where I'm like, oh, wait a minute, no, I don't have to do that. I'm like, I just text you back, 3 minutes, I'll see you in 3 minutes, all's good. And I just like have so much peace in my life every single day, like 5 times a day, because of the simple practical strategies that you taught me. And not only taught me, but also like coached me through, a 10 million times before I really,
Yes,
before it really
right.
sunk in and I was able to do it. It's not just like you can read it and get it. You have to just keep being encouraged in those times when you're really struggling.
At the beginning, it wasn't that way, right?
I mean, it was an awful, awful feeling to be so mad at my kid all the time and like yelling at him. I
Mm.
still yell at him, but it's different. I
Mhm.
don't know how, but to yell at him and then have so much shame about myself as a parent, I guess. And 3 times a week, I was really going into a bad place with him. I mean, I actually like, I mean, I don't even know if I want to say this on a recording, some of the terrible parenting things that I did, but I spanked him really hard before. I had screamed at him. I heard myself saying things that I couldn't believe were coming out of my mouth directed towards my child. And like even spanking, like I don't believe in spanking. It just like, what?
Mhm.
I don't know. I had no, it felt like I had control over my own emotions. For me, that's like the biggest part of it all was like my whole like animal self would like take over when I was parenting him and when he triggered me
Mhm.
and or when I was triggered.
Right.
And then I just didn't have control anymore. I just like lashed out and then I just felt bad. And it sounds like, I mean, I'm making it sound really awful. Probably some people would see it and think like, oh, that's fine. That's what I do to my kid every day. I
Mhm.
didn't feel good about it and it wasn't working. Like my son is the perfect teacher for me because he did not take any of it. I mean, he was at one point he said, "Mom, I'm going to jump out in front of this car and kill myself." Like that. He was like 6 when he said that. And he was in a really bad place because I was like, I had no skill. And
Mhm.
we loved each other, but like, I didn't have a way to deal with my triggers. So I couldn't model for him how to do that. And, he's a kid. How could I ever expect him to be able to deal with me? And this all came from how I grew up and how,
Right.
my father is still the same way. And
Right.
I'm not triggered by him anymore either, by the way. I don't know if I've told you that part though, but like
Woohoo!
I love him.
Yeah, and I love what you're describing. I mean, I want to stress in this view of parenting, what we start to look at is that as young children, we begin to have very, very intense feelings that we weren't able to tolerate. So we begin to organize our life not to feel them. So we would create strategies such as, like you say, screaming, yelling, avoiding, trying to control. All of these things were just strategies because we didn't know, especially as children, we didn't have the capacity to actually tolerate some of the intensity of feeling that was arising. So, as we grow into our parenting, again, when our children trigger, and I just want to stress to people what a trigger is when you are triggered, you are actually moving back into an early memory, a feeling memory that has gone on in your life. And so when you have a trigger, the emotional response is the way you'll know it is it's so much more intense than the actual action that's happening in the moment. Right? Your kid just won't listen to you. And the next thing you know, you're a raving lunatic screaming at them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you
Yes.
know, in that moment, like, this isn't about my kid in this moment not listening to me.
But you can't do it. You can't stop. It still happens to me now sometimes where I can't. But I'll say have the wherewithal to say like, I'm really triggered. I
Yes.
can't talk right now. So if you want to talk to me, that's fine. But you might get me lashing out. So just be careful.
Beware. So let's talk about that. Let's dig a little bit deeper because I would love for people to get a sense of the work. What were those core feelings that you feel you weren't willing to tolerate or you were organizing your life not to feel? Like what
I was
was,
feeling not important.
yeah. So
That's
rejection,
my
most
big.
likely.
And I was feeling not listened to. Like I didn't matter, and I basically am a terrible person and mother.
Correct. So those are
I
the
don't know.
stories that get
Yeah,
wrapped
yeah.
around, those are
Yeah,
the stories that get wrapped
yeah.
around the feeling of rejection. Right? Because he was
Mhm.
rejecting your efforts to be a good mother.
Mhm.
He was rejecting your
Yeah.
words. He was rejecting making you feel good about yourself and making you feel important, right?
Mhm.
So that core that we wrap around. So you had been organizing your parenting to try not to feel rejected.
Yeah, and I still definitely do that sometimes. So I'm not
Yeah.
saying I'm perfect, but at least I have awareness around it.
But let's talk about what that looks like, because I know a lot of people here have
Mhm.
this core one. That's my core thing. I organized my whole parenting around not feeling rejected, which for me meant I didn't set healthy boundaries with my daughter, right?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
I didn't want her to feel rejected and abandoned. And it just got all wonky and confused because I wasn't really willing to tolerate my feelings of rejection. So maybe you could share a little bit about,
Yeah.
when, like, how are you parenting so you wouldn't have to tolerate those feelings?
Yeah, that's a hard question. Um, I think I was parenting in that I would just like not um I just wanted him to do things naturally.
Yes.
I just wanted him to be the adult.
Mhm.
And then I didn't want to have to, and then I would wait, yeah, to like you say, to have a boundary. I didn't even know that I
You
was
could.
supposed to have boundaries or what that, and I'm still actually working on that in all my relationships. By the time my boundary had been crossed, meaning that my son was doing something that I felt like I couldn't handle, it was too late. And I was so in my animal like reactionary self that I couldn't even speak in a way that makes any sense at all. I was just like angry.
Let's just
Yeah.
break that just so people understand that
Yeah.
anger is the secondary emotion. That's the protective emotion, right? You are protecting the vulnerability that did not want to tolerate feeling rejected or abandoned. So, many parents come, and I love to stress this. I'll say, well, what did you feel? And the very first feeling is anger, 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 right? And it often happens for our
Mhm.
children too. Their protective emotion, and it's called a secondary emotion, is protecting the deep, deep vulnerability.
Right.
So, what you're describing, which is so classic and so beautiful, is instead of being willing to set your own healthy personal boundaries, you felt if you could bind your kid, if you could get him to listen, if you could get him to
Yeah.
behave, if you
Force
could
him.
get him to do,
Overpower him.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. And
Mhm.
that's more the traditional view, like we have to get our children, we say children need limits and boundaries. And yet
Yeah.
I found that that wasn't true. I needed a personal boundary. And then my daughter
Yes.
would be limited and bound, right? By my personal boundary. But
Right.
you're describing when I wasn't able to set that for myself, I expected my son to do it for me. And then when
Yes.
he didn't, of course I was outraged, right? Because
Right.
he was I had him in the place of the adult. Clearly, he was supposed to take care of me. And then when he
Mhm.
didn't, it sent me into that deep, vulnerable place where I felt rejected.
Yeah, that is exactly. And that happens in adult relationships as well. I mean, this work extends into everything. Leslie, I didn't even know what I wanted.
Yeah.
So I didn't even think I was allowed to have boundaries. Like I just didn't know about that. And
Well, let's
so
pause there for a
be-
moment because most likely
yeah.
the reason you didn't know because was when you were a child and you tried to set a healthy personal boundary, you got in trouble, right? When a
Yes. Yes,
child
because
tries
they did exactly what I did to my son.
Yes, when a child sets a healthy boundary, we tell them they're rude, they're mean, they're selfish, they're disrespectful, they're
Yes.
all of these
Yes.
things, right?
Yes,
Who
and I
wants to
said
be
all
that?
those things to Tanito, and I said
Yes.
all those horrible things, and it didn't work because he was indignant. He was like, "F you, mom. I'm not doing what you're wrong." Like, it was just so great. He was like a
Yeah.
gift.
Yes, and it's really hard. I want people to hear this, that it was really hard when you're in the middle of it, right? Because it's hard to
Oh
see it
my
as a
god,
gift.
yeah.
You can see it as a gift from the other side
No.
now.
Oh, absolutely. No, I did not see it as a gift. I saw my son is something is wrong. I'm crazy, and or until you have some skill around. Also, I felt like I was a terrible mother because I couldn't control him. I couldn't, and I didn't want to. Like, I just, every time I tried to do it, I knew it just didn't feel right. It felt like I was turning into my dad. And I didn't want to be like that. I just didn't know how else to do it. I just needed some strategies so badly.
Well, you needed a new template. Of course, you were
Yeah.
acting out of your old template. That's all you had, especially under stress. And I
Mhm.
want to stress that also to folks, this isn't that you were bad or wrong or terrible, because those are the things we tell ourselves because we were
Right.
told. It's that under stress, we always are going to fall back into our old template. And our template is the one that
Mhm.
we were parented out of, right? And
Right.
so when we don't have a new template, which is this work is about creating that new template, giving you a new format, a new language of parenting, we have to learn, and I know you learn this the whole time, we have to learn to offer kindness to the old template
Mhm.
instead of shame and
Mhm.
beat up, right?
Right.
Mm,
Right. And
yeah,
that is the key for me. That
yeah.
was I mean, when people talk about self-love and self-care, I didn't even know what they were talking about until I met you. Then I'm like, "Oh, this is what
Mm,
self-love and self-care is." This that's the thing that I pass on to every single person I meet
mm,
because people don't know how to love themselves. They don't even know what you're talking about. They think you mean go out and have a pedicure and go to
mhm,
the spa or
mhm,
whatever. No, no, no. We're talking about when you are at your very, very worst. Can you come in and grab that little one who is so freaking terrified? And
mm,
can you like hold her in your arms and tell her, like, honey, I got you. I love you so much and I am not going to leave you. I will be with you forever. I'm saying this is what you say to your little one that's
mhm.
acting
Inside,
out and is terrified.
right? Not your child, your inner child,
No,
right?
me,
Yeah.
my little girl who comes
Mm,
out and is just like, she just wanted to be listened to. She just wanted to be heard. She just wanted to be respected. That's the one that comes up 5 times a day where, just before this call, same thing, like, I coulda gone into that, but instead of getting all worked up about being late for the call and having forgotten, I can go in and be like, "Oh, honey, you're cool. You're good. I
mhm,
got you." Like, it's so fast now. I can do
mm.
it so fast.
And I would love to
Mhm.
hear how your parenting looks now today, now that you've built this capacity to tolerate some of these intense feelings and not act them out. Like, what does it look
Yeah.
like?
It is a miracle. I am so happy in with my relationship with my son.
Mm,
I feel like I have just this really sweet, tender, loving, mutually respecting relationship. Like, he is just as important as I am. His needs are just as important as mine.
mm,
And we work it out. And it doesn't always work perfectly. Like, we don't, but it doesn't feel like a struggle. It feels like a partnership, like a team. Like, we're actually like doing this thing in a more mutually beneficial way. And I don't feel like I have to do anything anymore. Like, I don't feel like I swear I don't have any like times where I'm like screaming at him. It just doesn't happen. If I'm screaming at him, it's about traffic or
right.
something that
Not
has
about
nothing to
him.
do with him.
Right.
Right.
So it sounds like the belief that you were able to surrender in parenting this way is that you needed your child to be different so that you could be okay.
That's true. And it's still hard. I won't say that it's not hard. Like, he's
Mhm,
still, for example, my one of my big things that I blamed this on was screen time. And
mhm.
he's still, I mean, it's a snow day today here in Minnesota. Yes, it's April 16th and there's a snow day. And 'cause there's like 18 inches of snow. People don't move to Minnesota. Anyway, he has been in bed all morning on his screen. And that before would have just like drove me nuts. But you know what's funny is, like, I've been on my computer all day working on this business program thing that I'm doing. So of course if I wanted him to be different, I
Yeah.
could be modeling something different. It's not like I don't go in and like yell at him because I'm mad at myself for being on my computer all day long. I
Yes.
just like last night I said to him, I'm like, "Oh, it's a snow day tomorrow. We'll probably be using our computers a lot. Maybe we should make a deal where we like check in on each other and we do like 4 30-minute breaks during the day."
Mm.
And he was like, "Oh yeah." And he put it, I remember I saw him like put his arms up, just relax and being like, "Oh yeah." And like put his arm, I don't know how to say it, but he was like doing this like really relaxed pose in his bed when I was saying this to him as I was saying goodnight. And
Mhm.
as if to say like, yeah, let's think about that. Like versus him feeling attacked by me, like he's doing something wrong and he's the bad one. Well, of
Yeah.
course he's on his computer all the time because so am I, you know? And
Yes,
I
because
realize that now and don't
yeah,
think it's so horrible as
yeah.
before. And I don't like dwell on it so much. And he's still, he's like super into soccer and he's super into his friends and super into a lot of things. So he's not like, just sitting there all the time. But before I thought that's what was going to happen. If he was on his computer all the time, he was going to like turn into a computer. Leslie, he is doing better in school than he's ever done before in his life. His teachers are just like, oh my God, this kid is a different kid. He's doing public speaking on purpose. Like
Mm,
he doesn't do public speaking. He's just gotten so much more confident and so much more like happy. He's
mhm.
happy. He doesn't hate school anymore. He doesn't like hate anything. The other day we were driving in the car and I was like, God, I just feel like the happiest, luckiest person in the world. And he's like, me too, Mom. And I'm like, yes, this is so great. I know it sounds like not even true, but it is. Like, I'm not lying. It's just 360 turn completely.
It is quite miraculous, and it all comes from that deep, deep kindness and love toward ourselves. And as you say, not many of us had a template like it is, go get a massage and go do this. And it's really about loving, I believe, loving the parts of myself that I had learned to hate.
Yes.
Instead of hiding those, repressing those, trying to get rid of those, and
Right.
they were mirrored through my daughter, everything I hated in myself, there she
Right.
showed it. I was trying to be controlling and forcing and pushing and agendas on her, and all I had to do was come back and be kind to myself, to
I
really
know.
own that I had those pieces, parts that I was projecting on her and hated so much, and wow.
Right. It's like you're whole again or something, or you like
Yeah.
don't feel broken. Like I get to be, oh, this is who I really am. And it's okay that I
Mhm.
have these hurt parts and I don't have to push them away. Like they're so beautiful and sweet and they get to be here right with me.
And a lot of people always ask, well, what's the outcome? And I always laugh. It's like, well, in this parenting, we don't parent for outcome, right? Because the outcome, yes, you're describing, I have some wonderful outcome, you have some wonderful outcome, but we didn't parent this way for that. That's just like the, icing on the cake that your son
Right.
is doing all these things. Then we get to look and go, oh, look, I had very little to do with that, except I got out of the way.
Yeah.
Instead of I pushed
Yeah.
my
I
daughter and
mean,
I pulled her and I forced her and I made her. That's why she's here.
mhm,
I look at my daughter and go, wow, she had her own GPS. Look at that. She just needed support. She needed someone to believe in her. Like I needed support and to believe in myself. And look, her garden, her flower is so different than mine and it's growing and it's so beautiful.
that is huge and a key to be like, okay, they actually are who they are. And to
Yeah.
that, like, you don't have to do anything actually. Like, you don't have to direct because the more that you support them in being who they are, just how you're supporting yourself to be who you are,
Mm,
the more that they get to actually discover who they authentically are versus who you want them or wish them or want, what society wants them to be. I just am so excited about stopping the cycle
mm,
of,
yeah.
self-hatred and verbal abuse and physical abuse and everything. It's just like, actually, Leslie, there are so many outcomes of what you do. I know you just said that it's not outcome based, but if people wanted outcomes, I mean, I could name 20 different outcomes that
Yeah. And
happen just from
but
doing the work.
But I think they like what I was meaning is they're kind of all surprises, right? I didn't parent to get my daughter into college or to get her to do this or to get a job. That it's not
Oh,
that,
right.
right? It's just
Oh,
that
right, right,
it's
right, right,
just
right.
that the relationship and creating that beautiful ground for them to be able to grow into the flower that they are. Whoa! And I just say look back and go, I had very little to do, to do with this
Oh,
versus the old
right.
model was like, well, I pushed her and I did this and I worked hard and this.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm talking about outcomes like I feel good every day.
Yeah. Right.
I don't walk around lashing out at people.
Yeah.
I have better relationships with my coworkers. I've gotten into some beautiful romantic relationships.
Mhm.
I, lead people better in my coaching sessions, everything.
Thank you, sweetheart, for being here. One of the greatest pleasures of me doing this is I get to see the impact of this view of parenting and this work. And as I try to tell parents, it has very little to do with me. Again, as a professional, it's a partnership. And again, just as you described with your son, it's a partnership. It's like coming in and inquiring and seeing each other and reflecting back the beauty of who we are.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Leslie. I'll
Mhm.
be thanking you for the rest of my life.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. This week, thanks to Kat, our amazing mama, for joining me today and sharing her vulnerability and kindness as she travels the road of parenting. Parenting Paused is produced by Kim Paletti at Sound Mind Productions. Music by Jan Perchik. You can find the show notes at www.purejoyparenting.com, where you'll get access to the foundational practice of Pure Joy, the safe seat, and find links to relevant topics, as well as a transcription of the show. And if this work inspires you and you would like to practice, come join us in my free Pure Joy Parenting Practice group. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for being here today and listening to the Parenting Pause podcast, your partner and support in finding the joy in yourself and with your children. And remember, if you're about to scream, pause.